By 1942, the Nazi grip on Czechoslovakia had become absolute, marked by a regime of fear and brutal repression. This terror was orchestrated by one man, Reinhard Heydrich, the chief of the Reich Security Main Office, who was appointed Deputy Reich Protector of Bohemia and Moravia. Heydrich was the principal architect of the Holocaust, and second only to Heinrich Himmler in the SS. His relentless enforcement of Nazi ideology earned him chilling nicknames, like the Butcher of Prague and the Hangman. His reign of terror was designed to crush the will of the Czech people entirely, making an immediate, profound act of resistance necessary to restore national morale and show the world that the nation was still fighting. The order for this profound act came directly from the Czechoslovak government in exile, based in London. Recognizing that the assassination of such a high-profile Nazi leader would be a massive propaganda victory and a powerful symbolic strike, they collaborated with the British Special Operations Executive to plan the mission. The operation was codenamed Operation Anthropoid. The military planners were fully aware that eliminating Heydrich would certainly trigger massive, devastating German retaliation against the civilian population, but the psychological need to strike back was deemed strategically vital for the long-term survival of the Czech national spirit. The incredibly dangerous mission was entrusted to two brave, hand-picked agents, Jozef Gabčík, a Slovak soldier, and Jan Kubiš, a Czech soldier. Both men were highly decorated and intensely trained by the Special Operations Executive in Britain. They underwent rigorous instruction in silent combat, explosives, radio communication, and high-altitude parachuting. Their training was highly focused on the specific skills needed to survive clandestinely in occupied Czechoslovakia and to carry out a precision, urban assassination against one of the best-guarded men in the Third Reich. In December 1941, Jozef Gabčík and Jan Kubiš were successfully parachuted back into their homeland. Their initial landing was rough. They landed far from their intended drop zone and suffered minor injuries, immediately jeopardizing the mission. They had to rely on their training and the silent, heroic assistance of the local Czech resistance to find safe houses, acquire false papers, and begin the arduous process of intelligence gathering. The two men spent months in hiding, meticulously observing Heydrich's routines, planning the time and place for the assault, and preparing to make the ultimate sacrifice for their occupied nation. Upon arriving in Czechoslovakia, Jozef Gabčík and Jan Kubiš were immediately taken under the protection of the local Czech resistance network, primarily activists from the so-called physical education movement. The success of Operation Anthropoid hinged entirely on the selfless bravery of ordinary Czech families in Prague, who risked instant execution to provide the agents with safe houses, food, medical care, and continuous intelligence. These heroic resistance members, often sheltering the agents in their homes and basements, were the unsung heroes who meticulously gathered the necessary operational details on Reinhard Heydrich's personal movements and schedule. The central weakness the commandos sought to exploit was Reinhard Heydrich's profound arrogance. As the Deputy Reich Protector, Heydrich was fiercely confident that his reign of terror had successfully crushed the national will of the Czech people. Despite his high value as a Nazi target and internal warnings from his own security detail, Heydrich routinely drove a distinctive, dark green, open-top Mercedes convertible between his home and his office in Prague without a constant, heavy-armed escort. This predictable pattern, born of contempt for the conquered population, provided the two commandos with the only realistic chance for a close-quarters assassination attempt. The agents and their local resistance handlers meticulously scouted every potential route until they selected the ideal ambush site. They chose a specific, sharp hairpin turn in the Prague suburb of Lidice, located near a tram stop. This location was crucial because the tight geometry of the turn forced Heydrich's powerful Mercedes to slow down significantly, almost to a halt, to navigate the corner. This brief, predictable pause provided Jozef Gabčík and Jan Kubiš with the critical few seconds of opportunity they desperately needed to launch their simultaneous attack against the highly protected vehicle. The commandos armed themselves with the specialized tools delivered by the British Special Operations Executive. Jozef Gabčík was equipped with a British-made Sten submachine gun, and Jan Kubiš carried a modified anti-tank grenade designed to detonate upon impact rather than relying on penetration. The complexity of the attack required absolute synchronization and zero errors. After months of painstaking planning and intelligence gathering, the two agents prepared for their assault, fully aware that the political consequences of this symbolic strike would be monumental and potentially devastating for the entire Czech nation. The morning of May 27, 1942, began cold and tense. Jozef Gabčík and Jan Kubiš, along with a lookout, positioned themselves at the predetermined sharp hairpin turn in the Lidice suburb of Prague, armed and waiting. The ambush was set for the moment Reinhard Heydrich's unescorted Mercedes was forced to slow down. The agents endured hours of agonizing anticipation, knowing that the assassination was their nation's last, desperate hope. Their focus was absolute, honed by months of rigorous training and the crushing knowledge of the terror that Heydrich represented. At 10:30 a.m., the distinctive dark green Mercedes convertible carrying Reinhard Heydrich and his driver, SS Oberscharfer Klein, approached the bend. As the car slowed, Jozef Gabčík moved decisively, stepping into the street directly in front of the vehicle, raising his Sten submachine gun to fire at close range. In the crucial, terrifying second of the attack, the Sten gun tragically failed, jamming before he could pull the trigger. The surprise element was instantly lost, leaving Gabčík standing directly before the most powerful SS leader in Czechoslovakia, his primary weapon useless. Seeing his comrade's failure, Jan Kubiš acted instantly and heroically. He quickly pulled his modified anti-tank grenade from under his trench coat and hurled it at the stationary Mercedes. The explosion was devastating but imperfect. The grenade struck the rear fender or wheel well, tearing through the metal and spraying shrapnel. The blast severely injured both Heydrich and his driver, shattering the car and throwing the assassins into a momentary state of shock as the thick smoke filled the narrow street. Despite being gravely wounded by shrapnel and fragments of the car's upholstery, Reinhard Heydrich reacted with characteristic arrogance. He ignored his injuries, immediately ordering his driver to pursue the fleeing Kubiš, while Heydrich himself, armed with a pistol, attempted to pursue the struggling Gabčík on foot. The commandos scattered into the chaos, throwing their bicycles aside and disappearing into the nearby streets and suburbs. The act of assassination was complete, though the agents did not yet know the severity of their target's wounds, and the massive, predictable Nazi retaliation was about to begin. Immediately following the assassination attempt, Jozef Gabčík and Jan Kubiš managed to escape the chaotic scene, vanishing into the dense urban landscape of Prague. They quickly abandoned their bicycles and found refuge within the intricate network of safe houses provided by the Czech resistance. The agents understood that the Nazi retaliation would be swift and brutal, so their immediate priority was to disappear completely, making it impossible for the Gestapo to track them down. Their survival depended entirely on the continued courage and sacrifice of the local population who risked their lives to shelter them. Meanwhile, the initial reports on Reinhard Heydrich's condition were conflicting. He was gravely wounded, with shrapnel and fragments of the car's upholstery embedded in his spleen, diaphragm, and lung. Despite a desperate operation in a Prague hospital, his injuries were severe. The Nazi regime was thrown into a state of shock and fury. Adolf Hitler himself immediately ordered massive reprisals, stating that anyone found aiding the assassins or involved in the resistance would face immediate execution. A monstrous reward was offered for information leading to the capture of the attackers, inciting fear and desperation across the occupied territories. The Gestapo launched an unprecedented manhunt across Czechoslovakia, mobilizing thousands of SS and police forces. They imposed a draconian curfew, conducted mass arrests, and carried out summary executions in an effort to terrorize the population into revealing the assassin's location. Hundreds of innocent Czech citizens were rounded up and interrogated, enduring brutal torture in a desperate attempt to break the local resistance network. The scale of the reprisals was immense, with countless lives lost as the Nazi war machine sought to avenge the attack on its architect of terror. The relentless pressure, combined with the immense reward, eventually led to a tragic betrayal. A Czech resistance member named Cyril, under extreme duress and fear for his family, surrendered himself to the Gestapo. In exchange for immunity and the reward money, Kurda revealed the identities of the safe house providers, including the crucial detail that Jozef, Gabčík, and Jan Kubiš, along with other paratroopers, were hiding in the crypt of the St. Cyril and Methodius Cathedral in Prague. This act of betrayal sealed the fate of the brave commandos and the entire supporting resistance network. For 8 days, Reinhard Heydrich lingered in agony in a Prague hospital. The initial surgery failed to remove all of the horsehair and shrapnel fragments driven into his body by the blast, leading to a massive, uncontrollable septic infection. On June 4, 1942, the Deputy Reich Protector and Chief Architect of the Holocaust finally succumbed to his wounds. His death was a massive, profound psychological blow to the SS and the entire Nazi regime, proving that even their highest-ranking leaders were tragically vulnerable to the courage of the resistance. The Nazi reaction was immediately transformed into a state of hysterical rage. Adolf Hitler himself ordered a spectacular state funeral for Heydrich in Berlin, where the deceased SS leader was hailed as a martyr for the Third Reich. Heinrich Himmler and Hitler delivered eulogies, using the solemn occasion to pledge absolute, devastating vengeance against the entire Czech nation. This spectacular, public display of vengeance was designed to mask the immense humiliation felt by the SS and to justify the coming campaign of unparalleled terror and mass murder across Czechoslovakia. The immediate reprisals were swift and ruthless. The SS and Gestapo immediately executed known conspirators and their helpers, often murdering their entire families in a horrific display of collective punishment. Among the first to be tragically killed were members of the Moravec family, who had bravely sheltered Jozef, Gabčík, and Jan Kubiš. Hundreds of innocent Czech citizens were executed daily, rounded up, and shot in mass graves in the suburbs of Prague. The relentless, furious search for the 2 remaining assassins, still hiding somewhere in the city, intensified to a breaking point. The first, chilling act of mass annihilation came with the destruction of the small mining village of Lidice. Adolf Hitler arbitrarily ordered the village to be wiped off the map as a direct symbol of Nazi revenge against the Czech resistance. On the night of June 10, 1942, SS units surrounded Lidice, shot all 173 men over the age of 16, deported the women to Ravensbrück concentration camp, and sent the children to be either killed or forcibly Germanized. The village was then completely razed, plowed over, and all traces of its existence were destroyed, sending a wave of profound terror across occupied Europe. The immense Nazi manhunt reached its tragic climax due to the fatal betrayal by Cyril. Following his surrender, the Gestapo immediately executed all the Czech families who had provided safe houses, including women and children, tragically confirming the location and identities of the commandos. The intelligence revealed that Jozef, Gabčík, and Jan Kubiš, along with 5 other Czechoslovak paratroopers, were hiding in the crypt of the St. Cyril and Methodius Cathedral in Prague, a sanctuary hidden beneath the Orthodox Church. In the early morning of June 18, 1942, hundreds of SS troops and Gestapo agents silently surrounded the cathedral. The Germans, desperate to capture the architects of Reinhard Heydrich's death alive, began the siege. The commandos inside quickly realized they were trapped. Their immediate defensive strategy was to split. 3 men remained on the upper floor of the church to guard the main entrance and the choir loft, while the remaining 4 men, including Jozef Gabčík, immediately barricaded themselves inside the dark, humid crypt below. The battle immediately turned into a ferocious, close-quarters gunfight. The 3 commandos guarding the upper church, led by Jan Kubiš, fought with suicidal bravery against the overwhelming numbers of the SS. They used the high windows for cover, inflicting significant casualties on the attackers and holding their position fiercely for over 2 hours. Despite their valiant defense, the SS eventually stormed the main floor of the church, killing the 3 paratroopers, including Jan Kubiš, who was gravely wounded by a hand grenade and died shortly thereafter. With the upper church secured, the remaining 4 paratroopers, led by Jozef Gabčík, retreated to the final sanctuary, the sealed crypt. The SS quickly surrounded the stone entrance, using explosives to breach the heavy stone door. The battle shifted entirely underground, as the SS soldiers and Gestapo agents poured water, tear gas, and grenades through the tiny, barred windows of the crypt, preparing for the final, desperate assault against the 4 defenders below. The battle for the crypt of the St. Cyril and Methodius Cathedral was protracted and brutal. Unable to successfully storm the crypt's heavy stone entrance, the SS and Gestapo resorted to a sustained, terrifying siege tactic. They poured massive amounts of water, tear gas, and explosives through the tiny, barred windows that offered ventilation to the underground chamber. The 4 remaining commandos, including Jozef Gabčík, fought back fiercely from below, maintaining continuous fire and enduring the suffocating conditions, using their limited ammunition only when absolutely necessary to repel the attacking forces. The commandos displayed incredible courage and desperation in their final defense. They used a mirror to monitor the outside and attempted to repel the flooding by throwing the tear gas canisters and even the water buckets back out of the windows. Their primary hope was to find an escape route, and they frantically attempted to use a bayonet to dig a small hole through the thick, ancient stone of the crypt wall, hoping to create a new passage into the sewage system. However, the profound hardness of the stone proved insurmountable, sealing their fate within the underground chamber. The situation became utterly hopeless as the SS continued its relentless assault. The crypt was rapidly filling with water pumped in by fire hoses, and the air was thick and unbreathable with tear gas and gunpowder smoke. The SS commanders, infuriated by the long, costly resistance and desperate to capture the famous assassins alive for propaganda and interrogation, prepared for one final, massive breach of the crypt entrance. The 4 remaining heroes, recognizing the imminent failure of their defense, understood the profound gravity of their final choice. The commandos realized that capture was inevitable, and that enduring Gestapo torture would compromise the entire remaining Czech resistance network and endanger the countless families who had sheltered them. In a final, ultimate act of self-sacrifice, they used their last remaining bullets to take their own lives. When the SS and Gestapo finally forced their way into the dark, flooded crypt, they found only the bodies of the 4 brave defenders, ending the 3-week massive hunt and bringing the immediate operational phase of Operation Anthropoid to a profound and tragic close. The ultimate, tragic cost of Operation Anthropoid was paid not only by the 7 commandos, but by the entire Czech nation. In the weeks following the siege of the St. Cyril and Methodius Cathedral, the Gestapo systematically hunted down and executed every member of the Czech resistance network that had provided aid, including the brave families who had given the commandos sanctuary. The priests of the cathedral were also executed for sheltering the paratroopers. Hundreds more innocent Czech citizens were killed in a final, vicious spasm of Nazi vengeance, confirming the immense sacrifice the mission had demanded of the occupied nation. However, the betrayer did not find peace or absolution. Cyril Kurta, the paratrooper who revealed the hiding place to the Gestapo for the reward money, became an outcast. He lived a life of paranoia and isolation, spending his bounty money quickly. Following the end of World War II, Kurta was captured by the restored Czechoslovak government, tried as a traitor for his role in the deaths of the 7 commandos and the subsequent execution of hundreds of innocent citizens, and was ultimately executed, bringing a tragic justice to the final chapter of the operation. Despite the immense immediate human cost, the strategic significance of Operation Anthropoid was immediately understood by the Allies. The successful assassination of Reinhard Heydrich was a profound victory that led directly to the cancellation of the pre-war Munich Agreement, effectively nullifying German control over Czechoslovakia. The operation was hailed as one of the most successful and politically significant special operations executive missions of the war, proving that despite the terror, the national will of the Czech and Slovak people remained unbroken. The enduring legacy of Operation Anthropoid resonates globally. Jozef, Gabčík, Jan Kubiš, and their fellow paratroopers are celebrated as national heroes. The St. Cyril and Methodius Cathedral stands as a powerful, permanent memorial, its crypt a chilling, revered site of heroism and ultimate sacrifice. Their story remains a global symbol of the ultimate sacrifice made for national freedom against the tyranny of the Nazi regime.